And joining me now, NewsNation's Ashley Banfield. Ashley, I know you've interviewed Springer before. I appreciate you taking the time to tell us a little bit more about him. Let's actually take a look together at one interview you did.
Okay.
But with me, politics is a passion. It's not a career. In other words, it's like religion. If it's something you believe in, and I don't want to mess it up by... The reason I never made politics a career is because if the way you put food on the table for your family is you've got to get reelected, otherwise you're out of a job, then the pressure to be at least intellectually dishonest is overwhelming. And that's part of the problem with our political system.
I mean, I was really struck in this interview, the thoughtfulness that he really brought to the table, because, you know, he was a self-described ringmaster of what he described a crazy circus, and his show was way out there. What struck you after your time speaking with him? And I know this wasn't the only time.
Yeah, oh gosh. I mean, Jerry and I go back almost 30 years. I still can't get over it. That's how long ago I met him. And we spent an entire afternoon together back in the 90s. And we were at a convention and we were signing autographs. And he pulled a fast one on me and drew like devil ears halfway through my stack of photos. So all of a sudden that came up. And, you know, he was just a really lighthearted, fun-loving, wonderful, magnanimous person. And what I learned about Jerry very early on was that there's so much more to him. He wasn't the ringmaster only. That was such the last sort of chapter in his life. The person who I wish more people knew was the extraordinarily brilliant, not just politician, but human. I mean, he just seemed to have so much knowledge of everything, of the human condition, of the political condition, of the American condition, of the television condition. And he was always willing to share. He always wanted everyone to do well. He wanted to befriend everyone because he genuinely liked people. And you could tell. You could tell when you watched his show that even though some of the people on his show were sort of hideous, the things that they would say and do, he still saw the positive in them. Or he still respected everyone no matter what. And for that reason, I remember basically just falling in love with the person who Jerry was. It was such a gut punch to hear this, Natasha, today. It just really didn't seem, I mean, to me, 79 is really young. And so I just wasn't ready for this. And he didn't share with many people that he was ill. So this has just really been tough to process.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you know, at the top of the last hour, we were speaking with one of his former producers. He gave her very first job in television. And she was sort of speaking about how his base of kindness and humanity is what allowed him to venture into some really unsavory, tawdry, difficult topics, sometimes the worst of humanity on display on his show. But it was his humanity and his love of people that really shone through and allowed you to access that content in a different way. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, he just had empathy, true empathy, not fake TV empathy, like tell me more. No, he really liked people. He liked to know what was going on with people. And he respected listening. He listened to everyone. He never was the person that needed to be heard in the room, which is shocking, right? Because he was so fun and flamboyant and just a larger-than-life personality. But he truly was more interested in other people than himself. One thing I wish people would know about Jerry was this extraordinary body of work. Not just the Springer Show or Judge Jerry, but his politics. Do you know that in 1968, he was working on Robert F. Kennedy's presidential campaign when Kennedy was shot? When Robert F. Kennedy was shot, Jerry was one of his campaign workers. And, you know, he fell in love with politics on that campaign. He actually made a run for Congress. And when that didn't work out, he instead set his sights on city council in Cincinnati. And he became a councilman in Cincinnati, which we all know, you know, blossomed into becoming the mayor of that city. And so he loved the work that he was doing. He didn't do it for some of the reasons we see today. We see a lot of people who are disingenuous about why they're in politics. He truly wanted to change things. He wanted to make people's lives better. He loved people. And you could see that that was the reason he went into politics. It wasn't for fame or glory. It was because he loved people. And could I just share one other thing, Natasha? The fact that you and I are on NewsNation together. I just got out of my meeting with my staff. We're working on our 10 o'clock show tonight. And 3 people 3 people on the show worked with Jerry. So that tells you that it is a small world in television, or that Jerry just had a very, very big influence on a lot of people in the business.
And maybe a good eye in recognizing talent early on and nurturing it too. You know, you were speaking about his political career. There's this moment that really stood out for me from your interview in 2021. You asked him point blank if he is running for president or considering it. Let's take a listen.
Say, you know, there's Donald Trump. He was a reality television star in his 70s and decided to run for president. There you are. You are a television star. You've got the chops in politics. You clearly know what you're talking about. You follow the news. You're sharp as a tack. You're 77. You are not retiring anytime soon. Might you consider to go back to those days when you ran for governor in '82? What about running for president, or maybe running for governor again? Would you consider it?
I am announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States. No, you see, I just wanted to give you the scoop. Actually.
I was just going to say, wait, is this really happening?
No.
Did he have you there for a moment? I mean, he had me there for a moment.
For a very brief moment, I thought, where is he going with this? And then when he actually said it, I thought, he cannot be serious, as McEnroe would say. But that's Jerry, you know, and he knew television, right? So right away, he followed it up with, I just wanted you to have that scoop, that moment. That would be Jerry. He always wanted to do things for other people. And Steve Wilkos, who's got a really popular daytime talk show, Natasha, obviously, you know, Steve and I are friends. We live in the same town. We see each other semi-regularly. And I talked to Steve this morning about Jerry, and Steve is really struggling with this because everybody will remember Steve as Jerry's bodyguard on Jerry's show, on the Jerry Springer show. He was that sort of eponymous bald-headed guy in the background. And Jerry, understanding giving people a chance and seeing them, there he is on the right-hand side there. He said to Steve, hey, I'm going to go on vacation, Steve. How about you step in and you host my show for me while I'm off? And so Steve did, fully not expecting that would be something he would, you know, do. He was just there for the bodyguard job. And it worked out really well. And Jerry saw that the ratings were strong when Steve Wilkos stepped in. And most people in this business would be threatened by that, or, you know, some people would actually find that was just unacceptable and they would do away with that threat. Jerry went the opposite way. This is typical, true Jerry Springer. He saw the value in Steve Wilkos. He saw the success that Steve had in subbing for him. And he said to Steve's wife, Rochelle, we got to do a show. We got to create a show for Steve Wilkos. And Steve's wife, Rochelle, is his executive producer. She worked on Jerry Springer. And it is an extraordinarily successful talk show in the daytime. So that's just a good example right there of a guy on TV who does the opposite of what many would do. Instead, he fostered the talent that was successful and helped Steve Wilkos become the success that he is today. And Steve, to this day, considers Jerry a father figure to him. So this has been particularly hard on Steve.
I really appreciate you sharing that anecdote. And I think fostered is the right word. And this idea of lifting up all of the people around them. Very last question for you. Speaking of former bodyguards, he says a bodyguard shared with us that he actually donated large sums of money anonymously because he knew his name was divisive and he didn't want to cause any problems. Does that surprise you at all, knowing Jerry?
Not in the least. Not in the least. And I do know that charities suffer right now in getting spokespeople, and, you know, because sometimes it's off-putting if you're politically aligned with one side. That can really, that can really hurt a charity's chances for getting donations, which is heartbreaking. There should just be no bias at all when it comes to giving and people in need. But I can understand how Jerry would see that right away. He would probably see it before the rest of us did. And that he would give because giving is the right thing to do. And he never did it for accolades. Jerry didn't do anything for accolades. Jerry just did stuff because he wanted to do nice things for people. And that's just it's a great legacy for him to leave.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.